Today is a full review of a Serge Luten fragrance called Santal Majuscule. This sample was purchased from Les Senteuses in London, and so it's part of the newer bottle design. This one only has 3 notes: sandalwood, cocoa and rose. And what I get from this, the first thing that hits me is the rose. I get a watery, fresh, bright rose note. And the second thing that comes almost immediately after is something slightly almost gourmand, in the sense that it reminds me personally a little bit of a biscuit kind of quality, biscuit, cookie-like, slightly sweet, biscuity. That's the vibe that I get with this watery rose note. As this one dries down, it does get a little bit powdery. I think partly probably the sandalwood, but I think the cocoa note, to me, it doesn't smell like, how do I describe it? To me it's very like, if you can imagine just very simple fine cocoa powder, like cocoa powder itself. It's got that kind of dusty quality. This is like a dusting of cocoa powder. It's not particularly sweet, although the opening, like I say, slightly biscuity, so a little bit more on the sweeter side, but as it dries down it loses that sweetness. And it's kind of a little bit dry, I would say, but imagine a kind of a dry, light dusting of cocoa powder with this watery rose, which is quite noticeable on my skin for quite a long time, a few hours I would say, with this general kind of musky kind of light sandalwood note. That's the whole fragrance in a nutshell, really. It doesn't change a whole lot. Eventually the rose fades away, and you're left with this kind of, again, slightly dusty, powdery cocoa powder with sandalwood, essentially. For me, I found it a little bit underwhelming. I kind of lost interest with smelling this one. It doesn't grab my attention, it doesn't hold my interest. I think it smells pleasant, but I don't love it. I don't hate it, I don't dislike it, I don't love it. I'm just kind of indifferent to this one. It just doesn't hit the spot for me personally. I like the rose aspect of it. I really don't know how to describe it to you on a personal taste level, apart from it just doesn't do much for me. I wore this around family and they had the similar kind of response of kind of going, kind of, you know, don't dislike it, but it's kind of a smell. That basically. I don't know, personal taste is personal. I'm sure there's loads of people that love it. For me, it didn't do a whole lot for me, to be honest. The progression, like I say, doesn't change much. The watery rose kind of goes away eventually after a few hours and you're left with kind of a more musky sandalwood. Again, a little bit of a dusting of cocoa. It's very simple. There's really not much else to describe with this one. There's, like I say, no huge changes. I would say it's completely unisex. Daytime, nighttime, mostly all year round. Maybe avoid the summer with it. Maybe actually fairly versatile in the sense of dressed up or casual. I think it's not huge in its power, in its it's not cloying. So I think that kind of lends it in its favour of kind of being more versatile. In terms of performance for this one, 5 to 6 hours longevity before probably you would want to reapply. Sillage projection was modest to close on me, a little bit closer to the skin. But I did get wafts of it walking around in the first few hours, and then I would have to kind of bring my hand up. But yeah, for me, if you want something that contains sandalwood and rose together, then personally I prefer Lorenzo Villoresi Firenze Musk Eau de Toilette. This does a watery rose with sandalwood nicer. It doesn't have a chocolate note, it doesn't have the cocoa. But if you imagine a musky sandalwood with a watery rose note, then this is great. And I don't get bored of this one. I prefer this, to be honest. This one, yeah, it doesn't quite hit the same spot. It's a very short video, a short review, because it's a very simple kind of fragrance to describe. It's not complicated. It comes across kind of minimalistic. You get the notes that it says on the tin, so to speak, and that's literally what you get. If you've tried it and you want to leave your thoughts on it, feel free to add a comment. That's it. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. Be blessed. Bye.
One time he disappeared for 2 or 3 days. When he came back, they asked him where he'd been, and he said, "Oh, just sailing."